I was the youngest of widow's 3 daughters, and if there was one thing I learned growing up, it was that my father's heart was as cold as the stones that dotted our village paths. We lived in Sapi, a village where daughters like us were often cherished, those sons were celebrated. Father never hid his disdain for us, his daughters, as though we were burdens too heavy for him to bear. He had always wanted a son, an heir to carry his name and walk the land after he was gone. To him, daughters were little more than wasted breath. But mother, she was the light in our lives, a woman of endless strength who sacrificed everything to see us thrive. And my heart broke each time I saw mother's shoulders slump from father's careless words or watched her wipe away silent tears. She was a strong woman, but father's desire for a son gnawed at her, filling her with a sorrow that made me want to protect her. Then came the day that father dropped his bombshell. With a smug expression, he announced that he would be marrying a second wife, our maid Amara. Mother's face went pale, her pride shattered, but father didn't care. In his mind, this would be the answer to his prayers for a son. That day, mother's quiet tears and bowed head left a mark on me forever. Watching her suffer the ultimate insult, cast aside for someone she had once employed and cared for, was a pain I couldn't forgive. One night, I found mother quietly sitting outside, her hands cradling her face. She'd never let us see her cry before, but that night her resolve crumbled. "Why am I not enough, my children?" she whispered, voice trembling. "What did I do wrong that I could not give him a son?" We embraced her, telling her over and over that she was enough, that she had done everything for us and for him. Yet in that moment, I knew the scars father left on her heart would take a lifetime to heal. Mother's spirit finally broke, and I can't blame her. The next morning, she packed her things and left for her village of Nkimba, where she thought she might find comfort among her people. My sisters and I decided to go with her. We couldn't stay in that house watching our father revel in his cruelty. Yet, as we journeyed with mother, we discovered that Nkimba was no safe haven. Instead of support, the villagers whispered behind her back, mocking her for failing in her marriage and abandoning her home, as if it were her fault she couldn't give father a son. She was an orphan by then, with no parents left to stand by her, and she felt the weight of loneliness like a shroud. But my sisters and I, we wrapped ourselves around her, giving her the love and strength she had always given us. Back in Sapi, father celebrated his marriage to Amara. Indifferent to her departure. "Girls," he scoffed, "what good are they anyway?" He continued his life as though nothing had changed, convinced his new bride would bring him the son he so desperately wanted. Mother, however, stood tall. She raised us on her own, educating us while farming and trading to put food on the table. She taught us to ignore the whispers and gossip of the villagers who delighted in her supposed downfall. Each day, she reminded us that our worth wasn't tied to anyone's expectations, least of all a man's desire for a son. Years passed, and my sisters and I grew into young women. Against all odds, we excelled. We finished our schooling, each of us earning our place in society. Ekaite, the oldest, became a teacher, respected for her wisdom. Nkem studied medicine, her compassion winning her a place in the hearts of many. I went into business, determined to make my own way. Our achievements silenced the villagers' taunts, turning their mockery into admiration. Suddenly, mother was no longer the failed wife, but the proud matriarch of 3 accomplished daughters. Meanwhile, father's dream of a son was unraveling before him. Amara, his new wife, bore him no children, not a son or even a daughter. She was barren. The man who had cast us aside in his quest for a son now found himself saddled with nothing but disappointment. As bitterness consumed him, he took it out on Amara, beating her for failing him, just as he had once scorned mother. But in time, he chased her away, bitter and unsatisfied. Desperate to fulfill his dream of fatherhood, father married 2 more women, hoping his fortunes would change. He got his wish. 2 sons were born, and he celebrated, believing he had finally achieved the life he wanted. But his peace was short-lived. His new wives bickered and fought, their tempers unchecked. When he attempted to beat them into submission, they turned on him, striking him with brooms and pistols until he fled in humiliation. The village laughed, relishing the downfall of a man who had once boasted so proudly. Despite his hardships, father clung to his 2 sons, his last hope for a legacy. Yet, as they grew, the boys became troublesome, spoiled by their mothers. They rejected school, joining gangs and terrorizing the neighborhood. With father, now old and frail, they showed him no respect. Their mothers, equally indifferent. I heard rumors of how he would go hungry, his wives refusing him food as they lavished their attention on themselves. Mother, in contrast, was living a life of peace and abundance. My sisters and I achieved success, and we showered her with the gratitude and love she deserved. We bought her a home, a car, and even a driver. We took her on trips abroad, showing her the world beyond Nkimba. The village now spoke of mother and her daughters with admiration, seeing her as a symbol of resilience and grace. She was, at last, the woman she had always been meant to be, cherished and respected. But for father, there was nothing left but regret. The daughters he had cast aside, the children he had once scorned, were now thriving, while his sons had turned his life into a nightmare. He grew bitter and isolated, a shadow of the man he once was. Then one day, he awoke to find that his beloved sons, with their mother's encouragement, had sold off his farmlands, squandering the proceeds to buy flashy cars. They envied us, their stepsisters, and they would stop at nothing to imitate our success. When father realized his legacy was gone, his body finally gave in to his sorrow. He fell ill, his heart heavy with regret, and within days he was gone. As I stood beside my mother and sisters, hearing the village gossip about father's tragic end, I felt no pity. His life was a tale of pride and cruelty, ending as it should. We had walked away from him long ago, taking with us the love he had thrown away. And in the end, he had learned, though too late, the worth of the daughters he had failed to cherish.